Welcome everyone to, I guess you could call this chapter 2 of my very interesting project nonetheless. I believe in chapter 1 we had just ripped up all the track. I don't think we had too much of the cork down. So what I'm going to be using here is just some very generic, I don't remember who makes this, Atlas, I think, or somebody. I don't remember who makes it. But we're just using your standard cork bed. Now this originally came with just a generic one-piece cork, but I don't believe anybody even makes that anymore. And I wanted to keep it fairly original-ish. So I'm going to use some cork bed, and we are going to sand it down. And these gaps are really, really hard not to have wind up in these bends. And these bends are really, really, really long. So I am going to do some sanding up there, some 60 grit sanding, obviously, to get some of these little imperfections out. And things like this right here, smooth that up a bit. And initially, when this was made, literally they just put down cork and then they put down track, and that was all it was. But that was, you know, the standard of, say, like 1960 or whatever this was made. I want to make this a little bit more modern, so we're actually going to put down some faux ballast and everything. Initially on this was actually all done with old-fashioned, I think actually I have them over here, these old tacks, and these have all become rusty over time. And obviously I've got, here's a prime example of one. These are not good, obviously. And if we go up underneath, and I'll see if I can actually safely show you under here, there's a lot of holes and a lot of places where, case in point right here. Let's see if we can point them out. There you go. Focus. Don't focus, that's fine. These little holes right here where you would have had nails and whatnot, and they just are not any good. I've got a 5-year-old I'm going to be playing with, and he's actually the primary reason that we're going to be getting this done. And having rusty nails on the bottom of a, exposed area like that, not really my cup of careful. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Walther's Goo. This stuff right here. Good stuff. Thank you for actually focusing on that for once. Appreciate that, phone. So we're going to be using Walther's Goo. We're actually gluing down all of the cork bed. You can see there were some mistakes and things like that. That'll come out when we sand. And then we're actually gluing down the track as well. I'm not going to be tacking the track. I'm going to be using the goo to glue down the track. Now, when you see loose ends like this, that's for a very good reason. This is a great way to segue into the type of track that we're using. So when I pulled off the original track, let me go get a piece of that too. So even though this was Tyco branded, oh, I'm in the way there. That's fine. Shadows. Even though this is Tyco branded, the original track that was on here is actually, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera there. Probably not. Once again, it's not going to focus. But this is all Atlas Code 100. And I think the only difference between this stuff and the stuff they make today is it's like steel or something that easily tarnishes. Obviously, this one's got a few hornets' nests and whatever built on it, wasps' nests and things like that. That's why it's so dirty. It was not buried in the yard, I swear. This was hanging in a garage. And there were lots, as you can kind of see over here. Move that for a moment. That is a former wasp nest, as was a couple pieces over here. I got most of that cleaned up. But this is all Atlas Code 100 track. Yeah, pretty straightforward stuff. And they used a lot of these pre-made pieces. For the sake of making the track look a little bit nicer, I'm going to use all flex track. I'm going to use flex track all the way around. We're going to glue it down in places and just bend it. And then, of course, I'm also going to solder, which is why this is here. We put the two ends together and then put the joiners on, solder them, and then continue the bend. Now, Ideally, I probably should have done that before I put the first piece of track down, but I didn't think about it, and I'll go ahead and rat myself out. I messed up big time up here. I've never done this before. This is literally my first project, and so you could see this very sharp curve right here on the track. This is no good. We're going to actually have to take all this back up. You can see how bad the glue job is. So if you want to know how to do this right, literally start from one location, work your way around, and actually you can see how pretty that looks. I mean, it looks really, really, really nice right up to the point it gets here. And that. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to tear up this piece of track and that piece of track, because that's all literally I started and I came into a point and I didn't think about how to handle this. So this is 100% on me. This is too tight of a radius for any kind of pre-made tracks. This has to be done with flex track. In fact, it originally was done with flex track. And I'm going to have to solder the joints and then carefully bend it out. So we're going to have to basically clip this track here, see if I can take up the glue with acetone or something, and then tear up this piece. Luckily, the only thing that's going to really be scrapped is this, and like maybe from there. And then the rest of that can be soldered and kind of salvaged. And the trains are just here. Whoops. I mean, this guy's, he's seen better days. So, and I think for what I can actually fix him up for, I can just find a replacement. So I think he's just going to be some kind of a, he's just kind of here for my 5-year-old to look at and get excited about for the end of the project. But that is one of the big mistakes. And if you're ever undertaking something like this, I would heavily recommend do some research, plan ahead, because I didn't. I literally went into this headlong, never having done this before, and didn't use common sense, and it cost me. Good times that. Now, as for the track, like I said, we're just using Atlas Code 100. I decided to go with Code 100 because, number one, it was the original. Number two, a lot of my old locomotives, like my GG1 over there, and this guy, if he does run or whatever, they will not work on Code 83. Obviously, the CSX will 100%, but the old Tyco cars will not, and I really want a lot of my old things to run on this. I've got a lot of old trains from the 80s and 90s, and I would really love for those trains to be able to run. So Code 83 was my initial thought, but in hindsight, it wasn't going to work out, and upon the discovery that this was just general, Code 100 from Atlas, we're just going to piece it together. Pretty straightforward. Now, obviously, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from basically here. And I'm going to work my way around. And I will show this off, because this is actually one big change I've made. Now, this is actually, for the keen-eyed here, this is not Atlas. I believe this is Pico, is how it's pronounced. P-E-K-O, Pico, Pecco, whatever it is. I'm going to call it Pico, because that's, the easiest. So, this is a piece of Pico track, but it looks close enough. The frog is about the same diameter, same number, same value. And initially, and I will have to, there was a bit of a gluing incident here, but obviously, like I said, I've got to sand this anyway, so the glue will come up with the sand. When I sand this out, then this was the initial portion right here. This was all the original piece. It was just a standard spur, and basically if you wanted to take it onto another display or whatever, this is how you would get your trains off of there. But the problem is, for me, that doesn't leave me a lot of expandability. If I want to actually add this into a bigger layout at some point, you got one place in, one place out, that's it. Well, I really wanted kind of an input-output type of thing going on. So, we're going to add another switch right here. And that's going to come straight out here. And obviously this is going to go over a 90-degree section, and pretty straightforward. Like, that will be built out over time. I'm not totally worried about it, but I have to plan for the future. So, we've got our joiners here. I don't have them soldered. I'm going to be doing that off camera because my soldering skills ain't so great. My soldering iron is not very photogenic. It's extremely old and used and needs replacing. So, yeah, we're not, that's not pretty enough for a video. So I'm going to solder these joints together. Once they're soldered and once they look pretty, and we'll just slowly bend the track around. We'll meet up with that piece, and obviously I've got to do a little bit more trimming so that it actually fits here. But once all is said and done, and so you can actually see why I have to solder this, because I need it to maintain this kind of a, when I start to bend it, you see, unless I do an extreme bend like this, it starts to pivot, less actually form a curve. So I've got to get a good solder on there, and I actually probably need to clean that up with the file a little bit. Hence why we've got the file over here. So whenever you do cut track, you need to make sure you get a good file on the end there. That's just to make sure that they made up very nicely, because you want a smooth finish like this, you know, not... Where's a gnarled piece? I have a gnarled piece around here somewhere. But, yeah, you don't want it to look gnarled and mangled. You want it to look nice and flat and flush. Basically, the goal is to make it look like one piece of rail. So that's currently the project. We are coming along with it, though. And then, obviously, this is going to go around here. Pardon the mess. This is a basement, so work in progress. And then straight up and around over there. And then we'll circle back to the Atlas Code 100 girder bridge that's going right here. These are the original bridges that came on this, at least as far as what I had, and they are about period correct, and thankfully they're still made. So I have 2 brand new ones on order. I know this one looks like it's permanently in. I've actually got it, these 2 ties right here clipped so that the joiners will pop right off, and we'll do the same thing over there to make these very replaceable if need be. But these are on order. And the other minor modification I'm going to do here, and I will wrap myself out on this because I know some people are going to be like, this is so unique and strange, why are you modifying it? Because I want to. So, when we come down here, initially, this came down to just a very generic, move some of my tools here, came to right about here, just a very generic switch, and then it would switch up like this. And you can kind of see right here where the old, you can see the line right here. This is like literally just caked in dust and aged. This is literally what was under all the glue from when I took off the initial cork bed. And it was 2 pieces of cork bed exactly side by side. So, and they came like basically to a point right here. You can almost see like the angle right there. But there was so much of this gray area unused. And I kind of, you know, it might look to some people like a little service road. You know, it kind of looks somewhat correct. But for me, I'm going to get a curve turnout. We're going to get a Pico curve turnout. And we're going to start the bend right here and then add a 3rd siding going up in here. Why? I don't know. Because I want to. And it's my layout. So I'm going to enjoy it however I would see fit. Now, the one thing that I am not quite sure what I'm going to do with here, I have this little outfit right here, and I really don't know what to do with it. Now, when I was, I don't know, 6 or so, I visited one of those, you know, forest fire stations, big towers. So I bought one of those, and it was a big, like, you know, it was a Tyco job. It was all plastic. It doesn't really look very nice, and has like these flashing lights on it that was really impressive when I was a kid. And now it just kind of feels dated. But I don't know what to put here, so I'm looking for some recommendations, because something obviously has to go there eventually. Now, that really doesn't come to the functionality of the train. Obviously, the goal is here to get the train running and then do scenery next, but I'm always planning for the next big step. So hopefully by the following update, we should have at least most, if not all, the track laid, and we might even have trains running. Who knows? But I'm going to solder on some joints right about here. This is actually the original wire, but we're going to route it up under the track and up under the cork. And I'm going to solder on some joints right about here, and we are going to do just standard DC power on the track for now. We're not doing anything special like Digitrax or DCC yet. In fact, the only locomotive I have that I think is even compatible is the CSX, and a couple others that I've got, but I don't really want to mess with them right now. I would really just rather run DC power, get the trains running, have fun, and then we can work on, more of the fancy stuff later on. But let me know what you guys think. I'm honestly just having a ton of fun with it, and I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do up here because this little road just kind of goes nowhere. And when I was, I don't know, maybe like 8, 9, 10, something like that, I bought these little figures and I put them there, but they're cool and all. And I mean, that's just a Hot Wheels car I picked up a long time ago. But I've got some cleaning up to do. So I might actually do something interesting with the road here. I haven't decided yet, but that's coming after we get the trains running. So hopefully by the next update we'll have this fixed. We'll have the track, if not completed, pretty darn close. But my goal is to have running locomotives. So let me know what you guys thought in the comments section down below. Like, share, all that good stuff, and I will catch you all on the next big update.